What have you gone and got now?
I know you like racing cars.
That's what we're here to do.
I know, mate, but it's all a bit much going round and round in circles for me.
Well, I'm not going around the track in that.
There's no point. We're going to go grand touring. And now I'm excited. Make yourself comfortable.
Well, it's probably a little bit more comfortable than the Daytona.
I think you will be
Am I going to have as much fun though?
This is one of those almost forgotten Ferraris that nobody ever knew existed until recently. The car we were driving this morning, the Daytona, is the 365 GTB 4 camshafts. And the car we're driving this afternoon is the 365 GTC 4. The Daytona was Ferrari's two-seat model, their two-seat flagship. Berlinetta. And the C was the coupe, which was Ferrari's four-seater.
And the 365 comes from the capacity for each cylinder in the 12 cylinders.
One of my favourite things about Ferrari.
365 times by 12 is
4.4 litres.
4.4 litres.
Yeah. Competition version or otherwise, the Daytona is everybody's iconic front-engine Ferrari. You know, long nose, small cabin, it's beautiful. The thing that I really love about the GTC is that it's almost unknown by comparison, and it has that strange plastic front on the nose.
Yeah.
It's definitely a Farina design, it's definitely a Ferrari. You don't sort of scratch your head wondering what it is, especially with the 5-spoke knockoffs. You get into the thing and you settle in the cabin, and it's very different to Ferrari cars of the early 70s. The fascia's different. The instruments were a nod to what was, they were a hint to what was going to come in the 512 and all those cars.
Yeah, right.
And it was like, righto, we've got to start doing things a little bit different. We've got to start impressing people, and we've got to start selling GT cars to people that are a bit more discerning. And the ride of the thing, yes, it's very noisy in the cabin. I mean, it's not a quiet car. You can hear that it's got a proper engine.
That sounds fantastic. When I jumped from the Daytona into the GTC, there was a massive jump in, you know, comfort. The seats were better. You know, there's the cabin, even though it probably wasn't much bigger, felt a bit more spacious. There was more going on around you. As Benny said, the console, you know, has a lovely sweep to it coming off the dash. Yeah, I mean, it was a much more sophisticated car, I guess you'd say.
Not like a 911 of the same period, like we've said, you know, so many times, that makes you want to drive it faster and faster and faster and brake later and see how soon you can open the taps. This car doesn't make you want to do that stuff.
Wants you to sit back and relax and enjoy the drive.
It doesn't matter. And you could just drive it all day. Listen to that. It was drawn by a guy called Filippo Sapino. Ferrari had always made more money from four-seaters than it had from two-seaters, and they needed a fresh approach to the 1970s, both in exterior styling and cabin design. So all of a sudden, Sapino's designs make their way up a rung. Ferrari decides that it needs to replace the old 365 GT 2+2 that we all know as the Queen Mary, and here is a perfect fit. It's all in the details, the hot air outlets, folding lamps, rubber, whatever it is, but it's got, you know,
it is rubber.
It has this look about it that no other Ferrari had at the time. It was completely different.
I know.
Completely different to any other Ferrari.
That's what I love about all these designs, is that they're instantly recognisable.
And the glass house.
Yeah.
This car in profile looks like somebody's dropped a sheet over 3 boxes. Everything is one straight line. The line from the top of the windscreen that terminates all the way back at the tail, one line, no kinks.
People didn't like this though for a long period of time.
Well, these cars, they were cheap.
They went through a long period of time where no one really wanted them. They weren't worth a lot of money. They were expensive to maintain because of the engine and all the other stuff going on in the car. And they just got really unloved. You know, you've got this cam tail on the back. You've got all the signatures that a Daytona has.
Knock-off 5-spokes.
Knock-off wheels, similar chassis design.
It looks like it's going fast when it's standing still, and it really does.
Yeah,
it really
absolutely.
does. It is a delightful car.
But you still pulled me away from a Daytona competition at Phillip Island Racetrack.
The Daytona is a beautiful car, but it's a brutally beautiful car. It has muscles, it's got bulged arches, and it has a lot of curve, especially in the side profiles. This car is a little bit more slab-sided. It still has a bit of aggression to it. Ferrari gave the GTC side drafts, which enabled the bonnet height to be significantly lower, so it allowed the shape of the car to be significantly different. We agree on one thing: the Colombo V12 is, without any question, one of the magnificent engines, production or otherwise.
Right, but the big difference here is that the Daytona had this beautiful big airbox.
There's nothing beautiful about the airbox.
But it was functional. It came right across the top of the engine because the downdraft carbies were right there in
and
between.
then you couldn't see them because they were under the box. Anybody who's ever had an Alfa Romeo with a pair of Webers is going to just, lose themselves. Half a dozen Webers.
Yeah, well, let's go crazy.
And then,
6 of them.
Can we just say how many engines have the intake manifold cast in unit with the inlet cover. Camshaft cover? The engine alone is a sculpture in this car.
Yeah, it's great engineering. A beautifully tuned one of these is a thing to behold.
Absolutely.
I think it was a good match, of the two cars to see, the fire-breathing monster on the track and the car that is similar but much more civilised
on the road. That kind of same unburstable feeling in the GTC that we felt in the Daytona. And you're driving around this part of Phillip Island you've never been, scenery fantastic, soaking up all the imperfections in the road. The only wish I had was that we could have actually gone a lot further.
You could be driving through the countryside in 1971.
Well, a Daytona is probably worth 4 365s. GTCs.
Yeah, that's fair.
If you find magazine articles, not of the period, but classic magazine articles of say 10 and 20 years ago, they talk about the GTC being a cut price Daytona. It's the same engine, more or less. The GTC has a wet sump, the Daytona's dry sumped.
Yep.
The Daytona has a transaxle, the GTC has its gearbox bolted to the block. There are differences. It's a less exotic car than a Daytona under the skin. What makes it worth 25% of a Daytona? The Daytona is an icon.
So Dave Belford, gentleman racer, gentleman Vinny.
Not a gentleman.
Drives his Ferrari 365 GTC to Le Mans, gets in his Ferrari Daytona, Competizione, does 24 hours around the circuit and then drives home in his 365 GTC. That was Ferrari day for me.
Yeah.
Except you drove me home.
I drove you home, yeah.